Hello guys, I'm going to try to keep this pretty brief because I know everyone's super busy and has 9 to 5s when they're playing item sum. Anyways, Yamato, pretty complex weapon in comparison to like every other weapon in the game. For example, it has like 3 special moves, has like numerous variations in its normal M1. It's a whole thing, you know. I usually compare it similarly to Illusion's and Poser's Katana due to like its like potential to be like good on its own, you know, but it's not necessarily as easy as Illusion's or Poser's Katana, nor is it like as effective, but you can still get good results with Yamato. Now the first thing I want to mention is that numerous videos before this have been kind of like ruined by the fact that in a patch, re-equipping doesn't make you able to spam it again. No more stun locks like that. You have to use your abilities and whatnot. Now a good starter combo that usually everyone mentions is just going up to them, doing that, and doing this. Or alternatively, and what I feel like is a little bit safer, is going up to them and doing perfect judgment cuts. What is a perfect judgment cut? Before I start, I think I need to tell you some important information on how to do a perfect judgment cut, because that's going to be incredibly important for all of this. So what you want to do is you want to get your person, and all you want to do is, once your sword goes back into its sheath, press R at the glint. It's that simple. It goes back into its sheath on like all of these because it is unsheathed. When you're in the air, it becomes unsheathed. When you're on the ground, it doesn't until this part, and you'll have to wait for it to go in. You can't move until then, so I would recommend doing it in the air, because you can at least move. So whenever you see glint, just press R. Eventually, you'll be able to do it based off of muscle memory, basically, because it's pretty consistent. So if I were to look at the glint, it would be pretty slow, because, you know, your human reaction time isn't that fast. But once you get the muscle memory down, you can do it pretty fast like this. So you might be thinking to yourself, why would I need to do that? That takes a lot of effort. Because I know I'm kind of undermining that this can be pretty difficult to learn. But you get used to it, but why would I need to learn that instead of just doing the normal attacks? Well, here's the Yamato's struggle in comparison to Illusion's and Poser's Katana, is its lack of range and like mobility. You know, especially like when you're doing a ground attack, you don't really have much freedom when moving, other than like the direction you go when clicking. So basically what I'm trying to get at is that you have this weapon that like kind of like immobilizes you in many of its portions, right? Like for example, I can't move during this entire thing. The speed goes down to 0. In that instance, that's pretty annoying. And on top of that, you don't have much range. It basically has like the same range, I would say, as like Switchblade. It has like the same sort of distance where you can see this. It goes forward like 2.5 studs. Well, so does the actual raw hitbox in front of you for Yamato. So you've basically got a Switchblade. That's not what you want to use though. You don't want to use a Switchblade. You want to use whatever that is, which is quite high range. You don't want to use a Switchblade. You want to use like more like a mini cleave, because if anything, this range is just better than that by a long shot. In many instances, you'll find out that you can't really initiate this combo, or you might mess it up like that, and that is really unfortunate for you if you do. Another thing you might do is you just use Judgment Cut, but even then, what you'll notice, this range of the perfect Judgment Cut is significantly lower than the range of the super duper Judgment Cut. And with the super duper Judgment Cut, you can pretty much catch people from a huge distance, but how are you going to actually get to them? You know, now they're just aware of your presence, and now they're probably going to pop you like a pimple. So what you can do is just use the perfect Judgment Cuts, and well, now you got something like this. But you'll find that when someone moves, your movement speed when using perfect Judgment Cuts is also 5. So they're stunned, right? But they can still move around. On top of that, if you look at doing that with an attacking dummy, so this is like if a player with spam clicking, while you stun them throughout, when you have to reset it with a click, they're able to swing once. And that's not good. So, I'm going to go over a few things here, where One, you can become more mobile with it, and two, you can stun lock better. So the first thing I want to go over is the movement. With this, you can fly, right? And you can also perfect judgment cut basically all the time because your sword comes out in comparison to this. What you may not know is that if you re-equip, you regain your speed and can do that. What this could mean is that you can initiate an attack and then move upon them and then continue. As you may have noticed, you still aren't able to stun them, but that's a pretty good equivalent. You can move around now in between your swings by simply just re-equipping. So if you do one perfect judgment cut, there's a bit of a cooldown and you're able to move. Now the second thing I want to go over is making it faster. Now you remember that patch I mentioned with attack speed? Well, it's mainly just with the cooldowns. So like, once you initiate that, right, with the M1 swing, you can't do an M1 swing for like another second or two, right? If you do 3 perfect judgment cuts and then re-equip like you would in the past, you're able to initiate it immediately. So this is basically what I feel like you should be doing most of the time, is you do a perfect judgment cut and re-equip immediately, and then perfect judgment cut, so on and so forth. What you essentially get after doing that is like perfect infinite stun lock, where you're just timing it, and it becomes very useful because once you're done with that, you can go into another person and immediately continue. Most of the time when you die with Yamato, it might be your mistake, or it's simply just because they're able to get out. That one attack could be them shooting you, for example. They're going to be spam clicking you most of the time, so you want to make sure that they don't hit you. So, when you attack faster, it's almost like just continuous. Now I want to emphasize how good this is when you mix both of them, okay? So what you might get, right, is that you can initiate this, you can move forward to them, and then do whatever you may like by just getting closer to them. This can be useful in many ways. The first way I just showed you, which is that you can glide over to them and then use aerial cleave. This isn't necessarily that reliable because what you'll come to learn is that once you do that, sometimes they get flung a little bit out of your range. But what I usually like to do is I like to sort of mix it up a little bit by also unequipping again, and then you can now move closer to them once more. A third factor I didn't mention is also your jump height. Now, this is my favorite way to initiate perfect judgment cuts, right, is to just jump. You can always also do this, where you use an upper slash, and that will immediately bring upon it. But I think it's always just easier because you don't waste that necessarily, and also you're just able to still move. And something that you can actually do when doing that is you can actually control the height of which you are. And you can adjust your height based on your timing of when you actually swing, which allows you to even mix in normal swings. You've done the same thing you do whenever you go straight up on them and then are able to like slash them. But what you can just do is you can already be at ground level, move up to them, and so on and so forth. So what I'm trying to emphasize is there's these 3 factors I don't think people really actually talk about within the Yamato combat that is actually probably the best way to use Yamato, which is your mobility with that, right, and unequipping, so you can reset it, as well as properly stun locking by re-equipping. And if you're able to do it right, you can consistently get at ground level with your opponent, which may seem unappealing, but is pretty useful to do just on command. So you could be this far, and then immediately go into them, instead of what it would look like here where you're about this far. And it takes you a bit, So anyways, that's all you gotta know if you want to master Yamato, basically. Just remember those 3 things. They're really useful. Don't try to walk up on people all the time because, especially if you're only using Yamato by itself, it's not going to get you very far. You're going to want more range, and this is how you get more range. Thank you.